Well, welcome to Authors in Conversation. Today I'm talking to Orly Faya, and she is a genuine creative. There are so many angles that we could come at. She has two books that aren't published yet, but will be fairly soon, I feel. She is a poet. She is a body artist. She is an anthropologist. There is actually no end to the depth of this young woman. So, Orly, thank you for coming on.
Well, thanks so much for having me on,
I
Jane.
just want to leave the floor open to you to tell us about, yes, your author journey, but more perhaps we're calling this your creative journey.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to tell you a bit about that. I guess it's been a lifetime of working with creativity as a means of survival, really. I think that it stemmed from, as a child, finding myself as quite the neurodiverse, um, intelligent and questioning and not sort of compliant traditional Australian child, that I found creativity to be my safe place, my happy zone, my place where I could just zone out and zone in. And my mother gave me that opportunity. She's also an artist and a creative. So creativity, I spent most of my schooling and my university in academia. I was a legal student and then I went to law after that. And I was very into all the society. I've always been into society and culture. And so I ended up with an anthropology degree. Um, but I quickly needed to fly away from all of the institutions and all of the confinement of the social status quo, all of that stuff that I had huge question marks on all my life. So yeah, I flew away and I went to India. And in India, I really got to feel the expansiveness of humanity because India is so big and there's so many parts to India. And I got to sort of shake out of the confines, and a lot of physical pain I had in my body disappeared, and I just felt happy for the first times of my life, the happiest. And so I allowed myself to just delve into creativity. I would sit for many, many hours drawing in a cafe, and music and conversations and writing. And that's my happy place, is to tell stories through and express emotions through creativity. Um,
I love that. And just before I hit the record button, you were telling me that one of the books that is waiting to be, finished is particularly important. Tell me a little bit about that and why it's important.
Well, I think I was referring to the other book that is
That
more
is,
related.
yes.
The other book is an anthropological expression of what it means to be from more than one culture. I think it is really important, especially in these times where we've got wars raging and a huge lack of appreciation around history and culture, to show the beautiful parts of various cultures and the not so great parts of various cultures, and question where it all comes from and see how they come together. And because I really appreciate the coming together of humanity. I've been a traveler all my life, and so I've spent most of my life with people from all different backgrounds. And in my experience, people love being together. People from different backgrounds love being together and learning and listening. And it's not always easy to understand each other, but there's something very enlightening about just appreciating that that diversity is real and that normality is not, and
Uh,
that we are culturally constructed creatures. And what does that mean? So that book is about what it means to be from more than one culture.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, there's poetry in your resume as well. A
Yes.
little bit
Yes.
about that.
Well, I guess words are my favorite. I love to paint, but words are my favorite. I love to express with language, and my best language is English. So I think in my times of extreme pain, it's the words that have been my greatest solace, that I can express how I feel. And poetry gives you that permission to
Mm.
say it, to say whatever it is, and to express what you're feeling in words. It's so cathartic because it's very hard to express what we're feeling at times. And I think it's very universal to want to be understood, or to want to understand ourselves and to want to be understood by another. And poetry gives that access, that sort of bridges that gap, that really cold void between you and the world. And yeah, there's something in the telling of it. So I'm a spoken word poet. I really love performance and the opportunity to use voice. And so there's been, yeah, many times if there's a chance to stand up and share some poetry, that I'll do that.
Mm.
It's been extremely healing, like to be able to release aspects of my pain and dark reflections in a way that's beautiful and wholesome and nourishing, and yeah,
Mm.
you leave something behind.
Yes, and you're absolutely right that your thing is words, because when you said, and quite an unusual use of, you called it a cold void.
Mm,
I actually felt that.
mm,
That's the
mm.
power of words.
Absolutely, and they work in both ways. You know, we're creating our world through these words, and actually, the verbal expression is what I really value. I find there's a lot to be said for what has happened in our human experience through the written word. It's changed the entire experience of humanity. It's what's created culture. It's what's created belief in many respects.
Mm.
These illusions of truth, when they're sanctified in words and concretized in these ways, etched into stone or parchment or whatever it was in the history, and then destroyed and rewritten. There is this power to having something be written that is as destructive, I would say, as it is creative.
Ah, yes, very good point. And then from the word to the image, and
Mm.
your body painting in particular, tell me a little bit more about that, because I understand that it's not just that a person gets their body painted, but they find their identity in the process. Have I got that right?
Yeah, well, they either find their identity or they release it. So identity is
Release it.
another
Yes,
it's another
okay.
story, you know, that we've been taught that it's so important for us to know who we are in terms of identity. And yet identity covers this, you know, many, many categories of what we could describe ourselves to be. But my work has been very much about dissolving into the background, dissolving into the earth itself, or dissolving into the background of the world that we're a part of. A lot of people do want to stand out, and a lot of people are very confronted by dissolving. But part of that dissolution process is to recognize ourselves as something greater than all of these labels that we have put to who we are. And so it's a little bit about releasing the identity sometimes. And in that, there is a new identification process with something greater, something indescribable. Um, and sometimes that's the thing about life, is it is indescribable. And any attempt to describe it will just lessen it.
Oh
So,
boy, you
yeah.
are a deep thinker.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
what's this year got in store for you? What are your plans for this year in
Oh
particular?
my goodness. I literally live at the fork in the road. That's where I have been my whole life. It's not always where I've wanted to be, but this is where I still find myself without anything tying me down and with a million options of where to go. Currently, I am in the process of building a really lovely van home that will be fully self-sufficient. Whether or not I head off into the wilderness or sell it is uncertain. I might end up back in India. I might end up doing a master's. I definitely like to finish the book, so this is high on the priority. Whether I roam around Australia or roam around the world again, I think traveling is it's a little bit too hard for me to not be a traveler at this point. It's in
Okay.
my head. So I still dream of leaving the shores of Australia,
Mm-hmm.
and so we'll see what happens. But yeah, there's a lot of options at the moment, and nothing is secured. So we'll see.
Well, this is great. And listen, where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, people can go to orlyfaya.com, so ORLYFAYA.com. That's where my main pages are. But on Instagram, you can find me anywhere with Orly Faya.
It's quite an unusual name, isn't it? So easy to.
Yeah, I guess it is. So, and yeah, and YouTube, if you want to follow my van adventures, that's the spot.
Great. And I might throw in an extra thing as well, which is how I get to be connected with you, Orly, is that
Yes.
my friend Monica Rosenfeld runs the Stories That Stir series, which are not only in Sydney anymore, but it's also a wonderful podcast. So to find out more about Orly, you can go to that podcast, Stories That Stir. And I bet you don't just sit there and watch or listen, I should say, to the 10 minutes or so of Orly. I bet you get hooked in because Monica just brings some wonderful people together. So, Orly, thank you so much. This has been great to talk to someone with a broader brush on that question of creativity. And that book of yours, I would love to see it coming out.
Oh, thanks, Jane. It's lovely to share with you. Thank you very much for inviting me to the show.